The people who are using it to write things, that doesn't really describe my use. I don't find that it's a great writer, at least not for the sort of work that I'm producing. It can do a passable job for marketing copy. There are ways to train it on your own voice and style, but that's not, those aren't the tasks I'm trying to get rid of,
Hi, I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 28 years.
I'm Ellie Blue, the Vice President of Microcosm. We started this podcast to share what we've learned with newer publishers, so you can learn from our mistakes. Or maybe you just want to learn about the publishing industry.
This week, we welcome back a regular contributor to the pod, Jane Friedman of The Bottom Line, where we get all of the best publishing news, the deepest dives, and the hottest takes. This hottest take is going to bring us up to speed on most of what is happening with AI, at least as of press time, probably quite a bit more between now and when this episode airs. So Jane, what is going on with artificial intelligence?
So there were two big cases that were decided recently in the same court, but two different judges. One was involving Anthropic. The other was involving Meta, so the Facebook parent. And both judges decided, for different reasons, that if these AI companies have trained on books, it's fair use. Meaning they don't have to ask permission, they don't have to get licensing, they can just train on the books. It's okay because it's sufficiently transformative. That's a legal definition here that comes into play when you assess what's fair use or not. But what was interesting is that the Meta case was really decided on a technicality, like the defendants, rather the who came forward and their attorneys just didn't provide sufficient evidence to show that it wasn't fair use. And the judge practically begged for someone to bring a better case. Please bring me a better case so I don't have to decide in this manner. But the other one, which has huge ramifications, assuming that it's not appealed and overturned, the Anthropic case, the judge decided, okay, even if the training is fair use, and he thought that it was, you guys acquire books illegally. They used pirate sites to acquire digital books, or they actually, in some cases, they purchased print copies and destroyed them by scanning them in order to train their model. So the judge said, look, if you acquired the copies legally, but you didn't. You created basically your own pirated library. And now you have to pay damages because that's infringement. And so the case, again, if it moves ahead as planned, it's going to go to trial in December. Currently, the attorneys for the plaintiffs, so that's authors, and it's a class action, by the way. So this is everyone, not just the authors who brought the case. Right now, the attorneys are trying to gather all of the titles and authors affected, and there were 7 million titles in the training database. So millions of data points here to decide, what is everyone going to get paid? And the damages are significant. It can be hundreds, but more often thousands of dollars per title in damages. Anthropic is, of course, appealing, saying that if this judgment comes to pass with all of the damages, they will be put out of business. Oh,
wow. That would be very hard for them, I'm sure. But, I feel like the thing I've noticed about tech companies is anyone who starts a tech company is also going to start another tech company immediately after that one. So I'm a little bit less concerned for them personally, concerned for the universe.
We built this software from scratch to solve our own problems starting in 2001.
It's not only the reason for our survival, but the reason we've been a Publishers Weekly fastest growing publisher 3 years in a row.
Now we want to share it with you.
Join Working Lit and get back the agency to understand your publishing business, market and sell your books, and painlessly pay royalties.
Working Lit. Doing the math for publishers.
Visit workinglit.com to give it a try for free.
I actually signed up for Anthropic's AI to test it out last week. A friend of mine was using it and said she was getting really good results from it. So I ran a lot of our business information through it, which maybe was foolish, but I think I turned it so that it wasn't using it to feed it. And I got such wildly divergent answers, but that were so confidently stated. Based on one set of numbers, it said we should never publish another witchcraft book again and should immediately desist doing so. And based on a different set of equally true numbers, it said we should only publish witchcraft books. And it said it in just such a compelling way. It was like, this is urgent. This is the urgent message you need. So anyway, news aside, I wasn't impressed with Anthropic. I think all of those very smart people who made it could probably do something better with their lives.
There is a startup called Scribe. It's based in the UK. It comes from an independent publisher, or I should say it comes from the founders of an independent publisher called Bloodhound Books, which is now owned by Open Road Media, for those who are curious about these things. And so the founders, it was really difficult for them to get their books into translation. You know, the sales just weren't there. The costs of translation are pretty significant. But for those who don't know, if you're a UK publisher, you know, that market isn't as big as the US audience. And the publisher that's successful has some international sales coming in, translation or foreign rights sales coming in, but they just couldn't move the needle on that in a way that they found satisfying. So that's when they started to AI translation as a way to help them get their books into more readers' hands. And this isn't necessarily like there's been machine translation for many, many years now. But with AI, or I should say the large language models, you know, they are super effective at translation if you're programming one or training one to do precisely what you want with that translation. So what GlobeScribe has done is they've focused on 5 languages, and they've basically fine-tuned them so that they're producing the sort of literary translation that would be acceptable, meaning it takes into account cultural nuance and humor and other factors that aren't, it's not just a word-for-word translation, it's more of what we would call a human translation, but by AI. So you will find like AI-powered translation out there for like 20, 30, or 40 languages at a time, but it's not necessarily something that would stand up in, let's say, the literary publishing market. It might do fine for like a technical manual, but not for someone trying to read a novel. So again, they've trained it so for the literary quality that it can produce, and they're very confident about it. I haven't been able to assess it myself, but they've been working with all sorts of clients who are moving to that workflow instead of an older workflow using beans. And it's very affordable. It's $100 per title per language, which makes it accessible for self-publishing authors as well as smaller publishers. For me, now I talked to the founders of this. Of course, they've been faced with a lot of people who are condemning what they're doing, saying they're going to put translators out of work. You can imagine the arguments against this. But, you know, in my conversation with them, I was more of a let's say, maybe a generous interviewer. I was just really more interested in how is it that the technology has progressed this far that you don't necessarily need someone to proofread through the results. And it seems to like the technology has now advanced enough that if you're fine tuning it for a very specific purpose, you can get passable results. So to me, this is a good thing. Now, what will happen with translators, I can't answer that. I think they're still going to be needed for certain types of works. But I think this is better for getting more works out circulating. The US has a terrible track record of works in translation. We tend to just read what's already in English. Publishers don't tend to invest in works in translation.
Our industry is run by billionaires and conglomerates.
At Microcosm, we wanted the freedom to independently sell our books easily pay royalties, manage our inventory, and understand our business all in one place.
That's why we've been using our own software since 2001.
Now, we want to share it with you.
Working Lit is the only business success software that is created and owned 100% by publishers for publishers.
Join Working Lit and get the agency you need to help your business grow.
Visit workinglit.com to try it for free.
If I'm very tired and I use an AI to try and replace myself for a task, I can be like, oh yeah, it is like better than me at my worst. And when we looked at like some statistical analysis from AI, I was like, oh no, how did I miss all of this? This is really embarrassing. Like, I must not be very good at my job. And then I woke up the next day and was like, oh, I hadn't really slept enough. And that was at the end of my work day. And once again, I was just too tired to be able to like critically analyze what it was and wasn't doing. So I guess this is my experience, but there are these people that are really into it and really like believe that it is the future. So are there other applications that you're seeing where AI is like legitimately good at the task?
So I use it a lot for business efficiencies, and I find it super useful actually for some of the things that it gets criticized for, like getting the facts right. I find that there are a couple critical things you have to do. Like, first you have to know what is the outcome you're looking for, and which model are you using for it. So I use ChatGPT. I pay for it, which ensures that it's going to search the web if I need it to, so live active information. And it also has deep research functionality, which means it's going out to sources and then coming back with citations. So I can plug an article into it that I've written that has my sources included, and I can say, I want you to read through this and check for anything that might be incorrect, for a claim that's maybe a step too far, misspelled names. If a link needs updating, please update it, these sorts of things. And it's very capable at that if you give it a kind of a narrow set of marching orders. I'm not saying that you don't have to double check it, but the example I've provided, I'm asking it to, back check myself. And I have come up with things I missed originally, things that my copy editor missed. I've also used it to do a lot of coding that I wouldn't know how to do on my own. So this is a kind of a classic use for it. I maintain my own website. I have to troubleshoot my own problems when it comes to website, email, hosting, the whole 9 yards. And it's really good if you tell it what you're trying to figure out. You paste an example, you paste in error messages. 90% of the time it comes back with something I can use to fix the problem. But you can't 100% trust it, of course.
Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub,
on Twitter at Microcosm,
on Facebook at Microcosm Publishing,
on Instagram at Microcosm_pub,
and here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.